Imagine you wake up at 2 a.m. Something is wrong. You don't know what. You can't name it. It's just wrong. The kind of wrong that bypasses your brain entirely and goes straight to your feet. You don't wait to find out what it is. You grab a knife, you cut through the wall of your own tent, and you run. Barefoot, into a blizzard, into minus 30-degree darkness. You don't stop. You don't go back. And 3 months later, when they finally find your body, a mile from the tent, you still have your boots on your hands instead of your feet. This is a true story. Welcome to Mr. Wick and Whispers, where the fire crackles and the shadows tell stories. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through every theory that tries to explain what happened in the Ural Mountains in February of 1959. And I'm going to show you, one by one, exactly why every single one of them is wrong. Stay with me, because this one doesn't end the way you think it does. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to understand who these people were, because that's the part that nobody talks about enough. And it's the part that makes all of this so much worse. Igor Dyatlov was 23 years old, an engineering student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk, Russia. He had planned and led multiple expeditions before this one.
How much further?
He was the kind of person other people trusted with their lives. Literally.
Trust me, we pushed through
His
this.
group followed him into the mountains voluntarily because they knew he was good at this. Zinaida Kolmogorova was 22. By all accounts, fearless. She kept a diary throughout the trip, the kind of diary that reads as cheerful and ordinary, right up until it doesn't. Lyudmila
It's so beautiful out here,
Dubinina,
isn't it?
also
The snow,
21,
the fire.
wrote about the
Around
cold
the fire
and the
we
songs
gather
they
here.
sang around camp. Yuri Doroshenko made jokes in the margins of his notes. Semyon Zolotaryov was the oldest at 37, a World War II veteran, a man who had seen things that would have broken most people. He chose to come on this trip for fun. 9 people, all of them experienced, all of them trained. They packed for this, they planned for this. They had a route, a schedule, supplies, the kind of preparation that turns a dangerous mountain into something manageable. On January 23, 1959, they set off. Their goal was to reach the summit of Otorten, a peak in the northern Ural Mountains, a grade 3 route.
Watch your footing here,
the
the ice is
highest
brittle.
difficulty
Copy
classification
that.
in
Wind's
Soviet
picking up.
hiking. They were qualified for it. The team filed their plans with the university. They were expected back by February 12th. February 12th came. No word. February 20th. Still nothing. On February
Check your lights. We
26th,
can't afford-
search parties finally reached the abandoned campsite on the eastern slope of a mountain the local Mansi people called Kolatsyako. In the Mansi language, that name means dead mountain. The tent was still there. From the outside, it looked intact. No animal damage, no signs of a rock slide or avalanche, no indication that anything had hit it from without. Searchers walked up to it expecting to find the group inside, maybe trapped, maybe injured. Instead, the tent was empty, and it had been cut open from the inside, not torn, not ripped by wind or animal or accident. Cut. Someone inside that tent had taken a blade and sliced through the fabric deliberately. Multiple cuts. The kind of cuts you make when you are trying to get out fast and the entrance is not an option. Inside, they found everything. The food, the warm gear, the extra boots, all of it left behind. Whoever left, left in a hurry. And they left in the dark. Because the flashlight found sitting on top of the tent in the snow was switched on. The battery was dead. It had been on for hours. The footprints in the snow led away from the tent in a single direction, toward the tree line, about 1.5 miles downhill. 8 or 9 sets of tracks, some barefoot, some in a single sock, some in felt inner boots. Not one person had taken the time to put on proper footwear before leaving. They found the first 2 bodies at the edge of the forest, near a large Siberian cedar tree. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko, both frozen, both in their underwear. Branches on the cedar had been broken at heights of up to 5 meters. Someone had climbed it, high up, in the dark and in the cold. Why would you climb a tree in the middle of the night in a blizzard with no shoes on? Unless you were looking for something, or hiding from it. 3 more bodies were found between the cedar and the tent. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Rustem Slobodin, found in poses that suggested they had been trying to crawl back toward the tent, fighting the cold with everything they had left. They died moving. The remaining 4 bodies weren't found until May, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine near the tree line. And this is where the case stops being strange and starts being something else entirely. Nikolai Thibault Brignolel had a major skull fracture. No external wounds. Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov had multiple broken ribs on both sides of their bodies. The forensic examiner compared the force to a car crash, the kind of impact that crushes a person from the outside in. But there were no external wounds, no bruising, no marks on their skin. Whatever force had shattered their bones had left no trace on the surface. And Lyudmila Dubinina had no tongue, no eyes. The soft tissue of her face was simply gone. She was 21 years old. Now, here is where I need you to stay with me, because this is the part that the internet gets wrong. Most people who cover Dyatlov Pass pick a theory and run with it. They make it sound
The data shows a
convincing,
clear trend.
and some of them are, up to a point. The problem is that point. Every single theory explains most of what happened. Not one of them explains all of it. Let's go through them. The avalanche. Russia's official conclusion in 2019, after 60 years, was that a small slab avalanche had struck the tent in the night. The group panicked, cut their way out, and fled into the storm. Here's the problem. Investigators in 1959 found no evidence of snow displacement around the tent. The slope angle at the campsite was between 15 and 20 degrees, below the threshold typically required for an avalanche to occur. The tent was still standing, not buried, and the footprints leaving the tent were calm and organized, not the scattered, frantic marks of 9 people fleeing a sudden snow collapse in the dark. The avalanche theory explains why they left the tent. It does not explain the broken ribs with no external wounds. It does not explain the missing tongue. Infrasound. Some researchers have proposed that wind patterns in the region could have generated infrasound, low-frequency sound waves below human hearing that cause panic, disorientation, and irrational behavior in people exposed to them. There is genuine science behind infrasound-induced unease. But infrasound doesn't break ribs. Infrasound doesn't remove a person's tongue. Military testing. The Soviet military was active in the Ural region during this period. Some researchers theorize that a weapons test, a pressure wave, a classified experiment, could account for the catastrophic internal injuries without external marks. The Soviet government did seal the case files for 30 years. That detail alone tells you something. But no military test has ever been identified. No wreckage, no residue, no consistent pattern of similar incidents in the region. And military tests typically do not selectively remove soft tissue from a single person's face. The Mansi people. The local indigenous Mansi had deep spiritual connections to this mountain and to the area surrounding it. Some early theories suggested the group had a confrontation. This was investigated thoroughly and dismissed. No evidence of any outside human presence was ever found at the scene. And then there are the things that don't fit into any theory at all. The clothing on some of the victims showed traces of radiation, low level but present. One hiker's skin had turned a strange orange-gray color. The Soviet investigation noted this and quietly moved on. And then there are the boots, found on hands instead of feet. When your body is shutting down from hypothermia, the survival instinct will do extraordinary things. Some of the hikers had removed clothing from those already dead and given it to those still living. Someone had thought to protect hands over feet, because hands can still start a fire. Hands are still useful if you are trying to stay alive. These were not panicked animals running blind. Right up until the end, they were thinking, problem-solving, trying, which means whatever they encountered it before the cold took them. They had time to think, time to try, and they still couldn't survive it. I want you to think about something. You've heard the facts, you've heard the theories, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you're doing what every person does when they first hear this story. You're asking, what would I have done differently? Would you have picked a better campsite? Stayed closer together? Not climbed in a storm? And here's what I need you to sit with. So would they. Igor Dyatlov had led expeditions before. He knew winter mountains. He knew how to read weather. He knew how to keep a group alive. He had done all of it before. None of that, not the experience, not the training, not the preparation, not the competence, was enough. Because whatever happened on that mountain happened to the most prepared version of them. To them at their best. And it still happened. We carry around this quiet belief that the world is rational, that bad things happen to people who made mistakes, that if we're careful enough, smart enough, ready enough, we'll be fine. The Dyatlov Pass incident is disturbing not because of what it tells us about those 9 people. It's disturbing because of what it tells us about the world. Sometimes there is no explanation. Sometimes 9 perfectly capable human beings encounter something in the dark, and none of them survive to tell you what it was. And whatever followed them out of that tent, whatever made them run barefoot into -30 degrees rather than face it, that thing has never been named. I've saved this for last. Not for drama, but because I wanted you to understand everything else first. I wanted you to have heard every theory. I wanted you to have seen how close each one gets. Because this detail only hits the way it should when you've already run out of other answers. Lyudmila Dubinina was found with catastrophic internal injuries. Broken ribs, crushed chest. Internal bleeding the medical examiner compared to being struck by a car. She did not survive. She also had no tongue, no eyes. The soft tissue of her face was gone. The medical examiner concluded the tissue had not been removed by an animal. There were no claw or teeth marks. The decomposition theory that snowmelt had dissolved the soft tissue over months was considered and rejected. The pattern was inconsistent. and the absence was too specific. No explanation for how it happened was ever offered. The Soviet government closed the case in May of 1959, 9 weeks after the first bodies were found. The official cause of death for all 9? An unknown, compelling force. That is the actual language from the official Soviet government findings. The most powerful surveillance state in modern history, a government that monitored its own people's every move, that controlled information absolutely, looked at what happened on that mountain and wrote those 4 words. Unknown, compelling force. They sealed the files for 30 years. Russia reopened the case in 2019, announced their conclusion. Avalanche, case closed. The tent was cut from the inside. And Lyudmila still has no tongue. Think back to where we started. That feeling I described at the beginning. Waking up at 2 a.m. and knowing before anything else that something is wrong. That's all Igor Dyatlov had. That's all any of them had. One moment of something is wrong, and then the dark, and then the mountain. Here is the question I want to leave you with tonight, and I mean this genuinely. I want you to think about this when the lights are off and the house is quiet. If 9 experienced, rational, trained adults, people who had done this before, people who knew exactly what they were doing, decided that whatever was outside that tent was less terrifying than whatever was inside it, what did they see? We don't know. We never will. If this story got under your skin, hit that like button. It helps this channel more than you know. And subscribe, because we have more stories coming. Stories that don't let go easily. Drop a comment and tell me which part of this case disturbs you the most. Is it the tent cut from the inside? The injuries with no marks? Or is it those 4 words in an official Soviet document? Unknown, compelling force. And the 30 years of silence that followed. Tell me. I read every single one. This is Mr. Wick and Whispers, where the fire crackles and the shadows tell stories. Sleep well, if you can.